What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Pack a Day podcast. We are officially back talking about Aaron Rodgers. Of course, I think we are going to be in this situation quite a bit this offseason. And as I've talked about on numerous different occasions, this is going to ebb and flow for a while, and it's going to go back and forth, and there will be people that side with Aaron Rodgers, people that side with the organization. There will be news that makes it sound like he's going to be a Green Bay Packer this year for sure. There will be news that makes it come out that makes it seem like he will not be back for sure. And these things are going to go back and forth for probably the foreseeable future, probably up until and probably through at least some portion of training camp. We'll see. And, obviously today I'm going to be discussing the fact that Aaron wasn't at the first day of OTAs, and then his interview with Kenny Mayne on Kenny's last edition of ESPN SportsCenter. So a lot to dive into here. First of all, as always, thank you for joining me. I do appreciate it. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe. If you're interested in learning more about the podcast, you can follow the podcast at Pack a Day Podcast. You can follow me at Andy Herman NFL. But let's dig right into this appetizing topic that is, of course, Aaron Rodgers. And let's kind of go and just start with the fact that, an actual fact that we know, not what we think somebody knows. He was not, in fact, at OTAs on Monday, the beginning of the newest phase of the offseason activities, which is OTAs, which is on site. The team gets together, and it's noteworthy because Aaron Rodgers has always done these in the past. It's always been voluntary, and he's always been there in the past. That's the change here, right? And I know that people will maybe want to say, listen, Andy, this isn't news. We knew he wasn't going to be there. We know he's currently in Hawaii. Like, there's a lot that we knew about this already. Why is this noteworthy? And I think the first thing here is it's not surprising, right? We knew that Aaron wasn't going to be at the first part of OTAs at minimum. And it would have been much more shocking and much more surprising if all of a sudden he did show up at OTAs and he was there ready to go. That would have definitely been a much more shocking story and something to talk about than us going over the fact that he wasn't at OTAs. But if you take kind of a step back and just kind of look at this again from the precedent that he's kind of set up until this point, he's always been at these. So it is still noteworthy that he was not at OTAs as the first day of OTAs kicks off. And as you're listening to this on Tuesday, it'll be day 2 of OTAs. There will be on-field practices open to the media, and Aaron Rodgers will not be there to quarterback those, which, again, he's the MVP of the league. As Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst and everyone else that's been given an opportunity to talk about it has said, Aaron is the face of the franchise. He's the leader of the franchise. He's the leader of the team, and he's not going to be there to lead the team. That's big news. Whether we want it to be big news, whether we want it to be a topic that we want to talk about, whether or not we want this entire thing just to be done with and over with, wherever you're at within that spectrum, it's still very much newsworthy. So surprising, no. Noteworthy and newsworthy, yes. And I don't think there's anything else really to take away from that other than the fact that he's not there, which again was expected. But again, I think it would be disingenuous to not at least mention the fact that he wasn't at OTAs on day 1. And again, I should point out here, and it's worth mentioning as well, that yes, these very much are in fact voluntary practices. They are voluntary OTAs. He is not required to be there. He does have bonuses tied to his offseason activities, which he has not met, which means he will forfeit $500,000. Does that ultimately mean all that much to him? Maybe not. But you have to think that if everything is perfect and he's in good standing with the Packers and the Packers are in good standing with him, he's there and he's part of the offseason program and he's making an extra $500,000 and everything's probably good, right? So it, again, is noteworthy that he is not there. He's already now forfeited $500,000 for not participating in some portions of the offseason program up until this point, and this is going to probably continue on for some period of time. So let's jump in then into kind of the main portion of what we found out from Monday. We finally heard in some capacity from Aaron Rodgers on SportsCenter with Kenny Mayne, again on Kenny's last episode. And first of all, kudos to Kenny Mayne for doing everything in his power. First of all, for an amazing career, but secondly, for doing an amazing job of trying to get anything he could out of Aaron Rodgers in what was somewhat of an awkward interview. Aaron was very much trying to deflect the situation and just talk about Kenny and his accomplishments. And the reason that he was there was to celebrate Kenny Mayne's career. Kenny's in an unenviable situation of, I'm sure he would have much more enjoyed just yucking it up with Rodgers, talking about whatever, anything else, literally anything else. Instead, as a journalist and as a member of the media, Kenny did everything in his power to try to get what he could out of Rodgers. And he didn't have to do that. He could have gave it the old token try to begin with. Rodgers blows it off and they could have just went on talking about other things. And they did, delve off into Royal Tenenbaums. Amazing, amazing movie, by the way. But they go off in a couple different directions. But Kenny really did everything he could to try to get it back on and say, listen, nobody cares about, and is not tuning in for Kenny. They're tuning in to hear what Aaron Rodgers has to say about his future in Green Bay. And I give Kenny Mayne a ton of credit for that. And it looked like, to begin with, we weren't going to get anything at all. And to be fair, I don't think we got a ton, period. But it didn't look like we were going to get anything at all. Kenny Mayne talked about him maybe, joining I forget what the name of the league is, but it's where the fans get to choose, different stuff throughout the course of the season and game or whatever. But he's like, and Rodgers mentions, at this point, anything's on the table. And it felt like for a moment that was going to be all that we were going to get out of that interview. And then he brought it back. And I think, to me, one of the takeaways here is Kenny Mayne specifically asked him, are you demanding a trade? Are you demanding a trade? And my initial gut reaction to that, and people have differed with me, which is totally fine, is that it was noteworthy that he didn't deny it. And yes, I do think it's also noteworthy that he didn't say, yes, I'm demanding a trade, I want out, and double down on everything. But for anyone who has still been on the limb of saying this is just a fabricated story, it's not as big of a deal as people may think, to me, he's not at OTAs on day one. He's doing an interview where he's asked point blank, are you demanding a trade? And he has every opportunity to say, no, that's blown out of proportion. That's not what I've requested, anything like that. And he didn't. He point blank did not deny it. No. If you want to go on the other side and say, listen, but he also didn't confirm it. Okay. I do think the burden of proof, so to speak here, when this entire situation has been going on and we've heard from literally everyone except Aaron Rodgers on what's been going on in this situation, I do think the onus is a bit more on him to say, no, there's nothing to this, or it's not a big deal, or we're still working through things. I think him not saying, not denying it, even if he didn't confirm it, I think not denying it in some capacity does confirm it. That's my take on it. Now, as Peter Bukowski mentioned back to me, and as others have mentioned, it's also noteworthy that he didn't go all in and say, I'm out of here. And on the same day where Julio Jones, whether he knew if he was being recorded or not, is a story for another day. Total Bush League move by Shannon Sharp, if that is what he did and did not tell him that he was on the air. Again, another story for another day. But on the same day where Julio Jones says, no, I'm out of there, Rodgers didn't do that either. He didn't specifically say, listen, I am done in Green Bay. I'm out of there. It's never going to work. He didn't double down and go in that direction either. Or I guess single down, because again, we haven't heard from him up until this point. So in the end, we got kind of what I expected, and I think all of us expected, was some acknowledgement of the situation, that yes, there is something here. And I'll get into that more in just a moment. But ultimately, I don't think we're any further along after that interview of knowing whether or not Aaron Rodgers is going to be a Packer in 2021, and at least in 2021, if not beyond or not. I don't think we can glean anything out of that. So let's kind of go over the main thing that he did say. And of course, I'm going to read this. I didn't memorize a quote, but he said, with my situation, look, it's never been about the draft pick, picking Jordan. I love Jordan. He's a great kid. We've had a lot of fun to work together. Love the coaching staff. Love my teammates. Love the fan base in Green Bay. An incredible 16 years. It's just kind of about a philosophy and maybe forgetting that it is about the people that make the thing go. It's about character. It's about culture. It's about doing things the right way. So to me, he absolved the players He absolved the fans, the coaches, the teammates, or maybe absolved is the wrong word, but he spoke praise on the players, the fans, the coaches, the teammates, etc. He gave praise to all of that. He did not mention the front office, Mark Murphy, Brian Gutekunst, Russ Ball. Now, he did say, look, it's never been about the draft pick or about picking Jordan. And I want to get to more on that in just a moment. So he did at least mention this process, but praising everybody, but leaving out Murphy, Gutekunst, Ball, etc. There's only one way to read that. And again, I hate with a passion trying to parse words and figure out who's thinking what and who's doing what and what happened and why. I would prefer just to know or be talking about literally any other topic. But this is literally the most important topic in sports as we speak. And we have to go over it in some capacity, right? So I don't know that we, again, learned a ton from this, but he made it clear that the Packers, in his opinion, have lost track of that the people in the organization are what make the organization great. It's not the building. It's not, everything else that goes along with the Green Bay Packers. It's the people. And he went on from the, Curly Lambeau, the 60s Packers, Reggie White, Brett Favre, etc., Bart Starr, and mentioned those, and it's the people. And I think he certainly has every right to believe that he's in the same pantheon of any one of those other legends in the organization. And my read on it is this, and kind of it's what it's been all along. They had a contract. They had an agreement that Rodgers was going to play for the 4 or 5 remaining seasons or whatever, that was left remaining on his deal. Rodgers has been transparent that he wanted to retire a Packer, that he wanted to play into his 40s, and he thought he could consistently play at a high level. Green Bay, I think in Aaron Rodgers' mind, breached that contract by saying, we want to have an out in case Aaron doesn't play well. We want to have an out in that in case Aaron doesn't play well. And that's what they did by drafting Jordan Love. I think that's ultimately what he's sort of thinking here. This is that, listen, I was here, I'm all in, I want to be a Packer, I want to retire a Packer, I want to cement my legacy, I want to do everything. And then they draft Jordan Love, and it's like, okay, I thought we were sort of on the same page. And I get the feeling that Rodgers' feeling here is that they said, listen, we want the ability, if Rodgers plays poorly, to get out of this after this year or maybe the year after that. And Rodgers took it the opposite way and said, that's fine, but if I go out and play like an MVP, I want to have the ability to be out as well. That's how I read it. The Packers covered their bases and said, if something goes wrong with Aaron, we want to have another guy just in case. And Rodgers fights right back and says, that's fine, but if I play amazing, then we're going to go in the opposite direction. And either I'm going to be out or you guys are going to guarantee that I'm the face of this franchise. And again, I don't know the exact words that they're saying, but that is my personal read on the situation. So what did we learn from Monday's events? What I think we learned is that, number one, yes, and this shouldn't have been even needed to say at this point, but yes, this continues to be a real situation and a real problem, and there's a real divide somewhere between the Packers front office and Aaron Rodgers. And if Mark Murphy coming out and acknowledging it post-draft hasn't been enough, Aaron Rodgers not being at his first OTAs and not denying that he wants to trade out of Green Bay, and just in the situation we're at right now, we know for a fact there is a divide there. And it's not to say that it can't be overcome. It's not to say that anything. It's just to say that, yes, this is legitimately a true situation and there is still major, major work to be done. What I think we learned out of this situation is that this is about the front office and how they've handled the personal and communication side of things, the bedside manner, if you will. Aaron Rodgers said that this wasn't about the draft pick, but he also said a lot of this was put into motion last year, and the wrench was just kind of thrown into it when I won MVP and played the way I played last year. So this is just kind of a spill out of that. And I thought Justice Mosqueda on Twitter put this perfectly. He said, I kind of felt like Aaron Rodgers was saying it's not about Jordan Love the person, it's about the idea of Jordan Love during the interview. And I think that's spot on. I don't think that them selecting the player Jordan Love and the player, the person that Jordan is, I don't think I don't necessarily think that he cares all that much of who Jordan Love was. I think it's great that they got along and he was able to help kind of Jordan up until this point. But it's the actual idea of Jordan Love and having somebody in the building that could replace Aaron Rodgers and how they handled that situation, as we've kind of been saying all along. I think that's what he took umbrage with. Rightfully so, maybe, probably, could be, who knows. But I can understand the viewpoint there when he's gone on record of saying that. And I think that's kind of what we learned today, is that the disconnect is about how they viewed him as a person and how much time and effort and energy that he put in to the organization. And then at a moment's notice, they can draft Jordan Love and say, hey, if you start playing poorly, you're out of here. And again, I think it was more the bedside manner of that happening and how it happened and the lack of communication and how he felt treated. That was really the issue. And yes, I think Aaron Rodgers, being Aaron Rodgers, wanted to be viewed right alongside his quote unquote, his legendary status, and wanted to be special in the fact that Green Bay, the organization that he has helped win a Super Bowl and stay relevant over the last decade plus, he wanted some reciprocation of that. And I get how this is happening, right? Brian Gutekunst is literally tasked with trying to make the best possible decision for the organization that he can at any given moment. And if that means that he has to be the bad guy and fall on the sword and draft a Hall of Famer's, a legend's replacement, that's what he has to do, in his opinion. And Aaron Rodgers, if you're in a work situation and you're giving your blood, sweat, and tears to everything they do, and then they, bring in somebody to potentially replace you, and you see the writing on the wall, and you've given everything you've had over the last decade plus to that organization, how are you going to feel? And I think the thing that I struggle with is I don't look at either of these sides at this moment with what we know now and say, look at Brian Gutekunst, what an idiot. Like, he's totally to blame. Or look at Aaron Rodgers. Look at the dick or diva that he's being. I don't see either of that. I see a general manager who is literally tasked and handed down the mantle from Ron Wolf to to Ted Thompson to Brian Gutekunst to say, your job is to always do what's right for the long-term vision of the Green Bay Packers. That's your job. That's what he was told through and through. That's what he learned. That's everything about his job. That's what Mark Murphy and the board of directors are tasking him with. It's not to make Aaron Rodgers and the 2021 Green Bay Packers the be-all, end-all. It's to make sure that the 2025 Packers, the 2030 Packers, the 2035 Packers, and so on and so forth can be successful. And in his gut, right or wrong, he felt like the selection of Jordan Love was the best way to help try to ensure that. Could it blow up and be a total effing disaster? It could. But he had conviction on that. I don't think that makes him a bad guy. Could mean that he made the wrong decision. Absolutely could mean that. But with what he was trained on and what he's tasked with, that's what he did in the moment because he thought it was right. We'll see what happens. On the flip side, I totally get Aaron Rodgers and how he could feel in that situation. The Packers have to do everything that they can, and it's the general manager's job to make sure that the franchise is protected long term. And no matter what way you look at it, Aaron Rodgers does not project in the long-term projections. Maybe it's 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, maybe 6 years, maybe something crazy. That is a short lifespan in the length of an organization, even if he makes it 5, 6 more years. And Green Bay, again, is trying to do it. But again, I get Rodgers' side of saying, listen, if you want to have that flexibility, I want to have that flexibility. And these are the situations that happen. And I think the thing that's frustrating to me is that I don't know how we can continue to be caught by surprise with this. This has been going on for decades, literally decades now. Joe Montana did not finish a 49er. Brett Favre did not finish a Green Bay Packer. Tom Brady did not finish a New England Patriot. Like, and the list goes on and on. We should expect these things to happen. And I get that everyone gets so emotionally invested in all of this stuff. But these are uneasy situations where you have two ships going in opposite directions and everyone wants them to just go in the same direction, but it's not always that easy. And I don't think it's as easy to say that Brian Gutekunst is a dumbass or Aaron Rodgers is a diva. There's areas of gray, and I think what we learned is that Aaron Rodgers felt slighted of how things were handled personally. And I think the way that Brian Gutekunst and the front office has handled things is to try to separate that and to try to make the decisions that are best for the organization and not try to get attached to the player and fall in love with the player, because you have to make business decisions. That's what these are. It's not personal decisions. They're making business decisions. And that sucks. I get it. But it is what it is, because they're tasked with running a business and Aaron's trying to cement a legacy. And sometimes those things just butt heads. And what we're seeing is the butting of heads. And how this turns out and how this continues to turn out, there are, again, a million more bends in the river before we get there. And hopefully everything is harmonious and can work out, but maybe it's not. And only time is going to tell. I don't know what else I have to say about it, quite frankly. And I know that there's going to be a million differing views. This will probably be one of my more disliked videos once again, as every other Rodgers video has been. I'm just trying to be as real as I possibly can. And I can legitimately see both sides of this coin. And I can see how both sides got to this situation. I can see that it's a crappy situation. I don't know. We'll see how it turns out. I'll be back here tomorrow. I'm going to be, hopefully, weather permitting. I don't know if they are going to allow people yet in the Hudson Center. If it's not, if everything's, if it rains and they go inside. So my hope is to be at practice on Tuesday as you're listening to this. And I'll be back tomorrow actually talking about the players that were at practice, which is immensely more exciting to me. So make sure to check out tomorrow's episode. I'll be right back here as always. If you haven't yet checked out the audio version, make sure to check it out today. We do it 365 days a year. I know you guys will love it. So make sure to check it out. Thanks so much for listening. Appreciate you all. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.